Hello and welcome to this narration of a mock-up that I did about Street Fighter. This was done for the Pixel Dailies account in Twitter, and my idea was to do Ryu and Ken on Guile's stage, just doing their basic idle animation, or at least my version of their basic idle animation. And what I'm doing here is I'm sketching, even though it's in Pixel, I'm sketching the pose that I want for the arms. I had the arm on the left of this Ryu character. I had it wrong, so I had to erase and then put it back on. The tones that I'm using for the skin, just two tones, because I'm getting the big contrast for the muscles. That helps the shape read a lot better if you put in a lot more contrast. It gets to the point where I don't really even need to add a third shade, because that's just going to smooth things out. So in this way, the shapes are very sharp because the contrast is really high, and the edges are very contrasting as well. So again, contrast. In this case, I'm just filling in what the shape would be for the kimono, for the body clothing. And I'm doing this on a separate layer, and I'm using blue because I know I'm going to paint these in the colors of the characters. But right now, all I want is shading. So I have, for this case, I have 3 shades. And I have 3 shades because of the cast shadow that the uniform does on itself. For the face, I use an extra shade, the one that I have to separate the chin from the neck so that it really makes the head push forward. And I'm going to use the same face for both, which I know is a bit lazy, but again, this was almost against the clock. What you're seeing here took about an hour to paint. Also add a red, in this case a green note for what the hairband is going to be. And I'm playing around here with drawing the shape of the leg. I start to add a little bit of detail, but then I figure out it's a little too noisy, especially for the size at which the characters are. They're very small. So the more detail I add, the worse it's going to end up for me. So in this case, I'm figuring out how I would do the clothing in this case for Ken. Changing the hairstyle a bit as well. I mean, I pause the video sometimes to go and have a look at Google Images to see what the hair looks like, because I don't know it from memory. I mean, I have a good idea, but not perfectly a good idea. So the shadow here for the hair, it's a little bit complicated to make it dark but not muddy. So you have to keep it saturated. Oh yes, I have to keep that color really saturated. That shadow there puts them on the ground, and in this case I'm sketching a cartoon version of an F-16, so I'm really exaggerating the shapes to make it look like it's a proper F-16, but also so that it takes up a lot of space. The grid here, the whole fence thing, it's going to take me a while to do, to figure out sort of a pattern for the diagonals, and then I'll just duplicate them and figure out kind of how it would look like. I mean, I'm never happy with this, and in the end, what I'm gonna do is just push it out of the way. So this is a basic shape for the jet fighter, or the fighter jet actually. And here with lasso selections, I just bring up different areas that I want to paint at different colors. So it's a really quick way to shade if you don't want to go in and do do a lot of line art. And also, as I shade, I try to get rid of the line art as quick as possible, because I don't want that to be part of the element. I'm going to add these cut lines along the shape, but the more lines you add, the more detail it has, and the less of a background element it becomes. So you want something that has enough detail to read, but you don't want something that is so detailed that it takes up the whole shape. So that flashing of the screen there that you just saw was me going into Google Images and looking at what an F-16 actually looks like. Because again, I used to be really into fighter jets when I was a teenager, so I kind of have an idea of what they look like, but not from memory. So it's always good to look at reference. It's just going to make things better altogether. Ignoring reference is a mistake. So this is a Sidewinder Missile, if I remember correctly. This is one that goes on the tip of the wing. I think we should be able to see the one on the other side of the airplane, but again, because this is a cartoon exaggerated version of it, I might get away with it. I was going to add a lot of highlights there on the airplane, but that was sort of a mistake. So just add one. Figuring out a color for the background of the airplane. This highlight here on the edge, I'd erase that because it made the airplane look flat. It made the sort of the canopy look flat, so that's not what you want. In this case, it has to be spherical, so I just left the highlight there. And these cut lines again, just to give some depth to the jet fighter, or fighter jet actually. So you see me here with the fence, trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm going to leave it there for a while, but it's so noisy that it's kind of taking the attention away from Ryu, and I really don't want the characters to be less important than the background at all. There's a few detail here for the crates, for the boxes, just to make sure that they read as planks of wood and conventional boxes. But I know that the one on the right is going to be covered up by Ken. And there we go, I moved the fence there. And the one in the center is going to have a couple of characters. At this point, I'm not really sure if I was going to have the characters or not, but later on in the drawing, I just go, I have to do it. Otherwise, it'll just be boring having a box there for absolutely no reason. What I'm doing here is painting the ground gradually more blue as to create that sort of gradient towards the horizon, just to smooth it out as it goes. And now I'm doing a basic shape of a guy. It comes out too big, so I have to make it really short. Again, because I don't want it to be disputing the attention. And as far as I remembered from the stage, there was a few pilots and a few girls with miniskirts, I think. So I'm kind of trying to replicate that, have a girl there leaning up against the box with a miniskirt, and have the guy sitting there. Probably at this point he's not, but he's going to be sort of thrusting his fist up in the air, as extras do in action movies. I'm using the colors from the box to do the skin tones because I really don't want them to be very, not to stand out all that much. So even the teeth are not white, they're gray. They're gray from the airplane, from the jet fighter, or fighter jet, that is. So that, again, that it don't stand out too much. Otherwise, it's going to be a little complicated for me. Eventually, I'll end up animating this, but at this point, what I do is just add some detail here on the ground. And eventually I'm also going to add a lens behind the characters so that they stand out from the background a little bit better, which is basically the same as going on to the background and managing the color palette. But I just felt that just by adding a layer there it would be fine. So I'm doing the K for the KO here, and I ran out of room, so I have to do extra moving. So that was it. I hope you guys liked it.